Got it. Did we rest? Stop interrupt.
Hello everybody, welcome. This is the show. We will be interviewing Supervas today. This is actually a video of us doing Kill Jaden. This is one of the fights Voss was in when it was happening. So let's give him a call. Let's see if this all pans out. Hello?
It is a terrible picture of you. Let's just start with that.
Terrible picture of me? It's not a picture.
The Skype picture.
Oh, the Skype picture, yeah.
That's
can you guys hear Voss? Let me know. We got Voss over here. Rocking the beanie. Loves the beanie. Kind of weird since he's from Texas, I believe. Is that right? Is that from?
That's right.
Does it ever snow in Texas?
Once every 10 years.
Nice. All right, looks like we're good to go. Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
I don't even know where to start. My name's Supervas. Been going by that since I guess beta, the original closed beta. Raided with Angry on Illidan for 3-4 years, I think. Joined Blood Legion shortly after I left. Raided with them for about 2 years, was it?
I believe. I can actually look. Your first raid was in February 20th, 2008, and you raided until about March 31st, 2009 was your last raid.
No, about a year then.
Last documented raid, yeah.
Stopped raiding because I went to China with my fiance to work there, and just didn't start raiding when I came back. She and I now run a webcomic, which you can see the URL at the top there. And she pretty much does everything, and I begrudgingly take some of the credit for it.
So, tell us about your time in Blood Legion. Sort of what made you want to come join the guild? What sort of attracted you in the first place?
When I left Angry, it was kind of an awkward time. I was having some trouble with some people in the guild, and some things were changing a little too quickly for me. I kind of forced myself into a position where I was either going to have to leave the guild or stop raiding. Just a lot of personal things that everybody kind of goes through every now and then. And I really wasn't ready to stop raiding. And there weren't many options on the server at the time. It was Angry, Blood Legion, or Team Ice, and I don't know, nobody wants to be in Team Ice on purpose, so...
We'll have to tell Ramos that.
So, I applied to Blood Legion, and I never really had any drive to be the best, but at the time, no offense, Blood Legion was nothing special on the world stage. It was just the best guild on the server, and I had some fun and working relationships with a lot of the people in the guild. They had a close relationship with Angry for a long time, which I was an officer of for several years. So it wasn't a huge transition. I knew most of the people there at the time. So it just seemed like the right thing to do if I wanted to continue raiding. I didn't want to step down. I figured I could either step across or up, but that's what it was.
Nice. And you joined pretty much right before Sunwell started happening, and some of your earlier raids were doing testing on the PTR with Sunwell. What can you tell us about Sunwell raiding with Blood Legion as opposed to when you were raiding with Angry?
The atmosphere was a lot different. For one, when we did raids in Angry, they took an obnoxious amount of time, mostly because there was a lot of downtime, kill a trash pack, stand around, do nothing, people going AFK all the time. And my first raid in Blood Legion was like a damned roller coaster. I don't think from the first pull to the last we ever actually went out of combat.
Yeah, we like the chain pull.
It was pretty much just air at switching to battle stance after the end of every pull and charging the next pack, whether or not anybody had mana or was ready or anything. But the atmosphere was just different. People took the game more seriously, but at the same time, they didn't take themselves as seriously. People understood the game, their classes, how to play, and how to make the most of what they were doing, but they, like I said, didn't take themselves seriously. They talked to each other and about each other. They made fun of each other. They made fun of the new recruits, myself included. And, we never did that in Angry. It was all a very serious business-like approach to the game, I guess, which in retrospect probably wasn't the best and was probably the stem of a lot of problems. But like I said, very different in Blood Legion than it was in Angry.
That's awesome. Well, just a quick for everybody, this is Supervas Gabranth Drew. Originally in Blood Legion during the Sunwell era, and was in the guild for about a year. Quit around Old War due to real life reasons, like you mentioned. Moved to China with his fiance, and he was there for about. How long were you in China for?
She was there a better part of a year. I was there about 6 to 8 months. I don't actually remember how long I was there. It was different. Okay.
So, what is one of your most memorable fights with Blood Legion?
The big one, like you can see in the video there, was Kill Jaden. And it was Kill Jaden because it wasn't my first fight. It was just the first one that I guess really meant anything. It was around the time when people were first starting to actually seriously track the progress of guilds in the world, comparing, the European guilds to the North American ones. They had been for some time, but, we didn't have, like, the WoW rankings and stuff back then. Back then, it wasn't that long ago. But it was the first time people were really starting to take notice. And it was one of the first times that I had done a fight where I had no previous knowledge going into the fight. It wasn't like in Blackwing Lair where nobody knew anything, but the bosses were easy. It was just, we didn't know anything about the fight. We're going in, we're learning it one phase at a time. And to me, that was thrilling. Killing him was validating, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Nice. And this is actually, from what I understand, this was this kill in particular was, I think, the first one that you were in for the first kill, since obviously you were a recruit for half of Sunwell. Is that right?
I don't remember because we did a lot of them on the test roam too, and I know I was in Brutalist, but I don't remember if it was on live or test that I killed him first. So honestly, I don't remember. It could very well be that was the first one I was in for a live raid. And as chance would have it, the only reason I was even in that raid is because Thanos, who was ahead of me in line as a paladin, his router overheated and he couldn't reconnect to the game. And they needed another healer, and I was literally the only one logged in at the time.
Nice. So what do you as like I had mentioned before, you're a big lore master, love the lore. Why don't you tell us about what it is about the lore that sort of drew you to it? What enthralls you about it?
To me, it's the dynamic of it all. It's that everything is connected in a way that you don't really see until you start examining it. Uh, they don't just release content and say, "Here's a boss. Here's what he's doing to the world. Go kill him." Um, they're taking it back and expanding on a foundation. They change a lot of things on the way, but the spirit and the nature of the story haven't really changed much since Warcraft 2, and even beyond that, since Warcraft Orcs and Humans. It kind of gets expanded on, um, and it's fun to follow. It's fun to go through. It's fun to speculate about. And to me, it's thrilling to know that there are people out there whose not just their jobs but their lives are to create this world that we play in, and 90% of the population doesn't know anything about. I'm sure to most people that play the game, who Kill Jaden is and where he came from doesn't mean anything. I know some of the people we raided with didn't care who he was or know where he came from. All they knew is that he was the last boss of the instance, and we were going to fight him, and he was going to drop loot at the end. Nobody cared that he doesn't die like you're watching now. He gets sucked back through the Sunwell, and it gets closed over the top of him. To them, it was just a corpse, just the same. And to me, it never was like that. Like, I didn't raid for the loot, and I raided because the stories were amazing, and the people that I was raiding with were a lot of fun to be around.
So, touching on that, the fact that they don't just say, "Oh, here's some dude, he's doing stuff, go kill him." What can you tell us about sort of the Sunwell storyline, about how they did that, maybe with like the 5 man they introduced and set up the entire thing?
I guess the big thing about it was that it kind of goes back to Warcraft 3 with Kael'thas leaving with a detachment of his blood elves and going into Outland, and then you start Burning Crusade, and the nobles in Silvermoon and the leadership of the Blood Elf faction, they still consider Kael'thas their king, and the only reason the Blood Elves are even becoming paladins, or in this case Blood Knights, was because Kael'thas had captured a Naru and sent it back to Silvermoon for the elves to leech energy from. And so you go through this entire expansion where we know Kael'thas is serving Illidan. Illidan is supposed to be the ultimate boss of this expansion, but the Blood Elf as a people still consider him their king. And it's kind of where the Sunwell story starts, I guess. You go throughout the dungeons in Outland. You kill Lady Vaj, you kill Kael'thas, and you kill Illidan, and then you go back to the Sunwell where they announced that Illidan wasn't the end. Now you have Kil'jaeden, and he's trying to build the Sunwell into a portal that he can come into Azeroth through, and that's where you get a lot more story about Kael'thas. Like the Sunwell gets released, the dungeon gets released rather, and the first thing you notice as a Blood Elf is that Muru has been taken from Sunwell, or from Silvermoon rather.
Right.
And the elves in there, they're stunned. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't think that they can continue down the line of magic that they were on because they don't have this power to drain anymore. And it turns out that Kael'thas this whole time wasn't serving Illidan. He was actually an agent of the Burning Legion and Kil'jaeden, and that he was gifting Muru to Kil'jaeden. And that's where we find him in the Sunwell, where again Kil'jaeden is trying to turn the Sunwell into a portal that he can climb through.
Right. Well, I mean that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people looked into it or even thought about it. The fact that there's a lot of work they put into the game to sort of set up the story, really bring people in, and you don't have to be a role player to appreciate it. I'm pretty sure a lot of Blood Elf Paladin who go to Silvermoon noticed that Muru was missing from where they were sort of keeping him to create their holy energy or whatnot. But moving on from there, as far as further experience with Blood Legion, another one that really sticks out in my mind that I thought was a lot of fun. Perhaps I wanted to know what your take on it was when they released the patch for Wrath and all the world bosses, all the capital city bosses, they were raised to level 80, and we're all level 70. But as a guild, you know, we we wanted to step up to the challenge and try and down those bosses on Illidan, the most populated server in the world, essentially. What can you tell me about the Ironforge raid? The Ironforge raid. Wow.
I can tell you you're bad at talking. That's
It's not my first language, man. Not speaking English.
Well, two things stick out in my mind about that one. The first was, you have to remember that Illidan's like it's a Generation 1 server. It's at 4 o'clock in the morning is swarming with people. Like you can hardly pick yourself out in Orgrimmar. There's so many people. And we decided we were going to go kill these faction bosses because why not? You know, we had nothing else to do. And the two things stick out in my mind is, one, again, the server's super populated, Horde and Alliance. And the first one we decided to kill was the faction boss in Darnassus. And I think the whole time we were in Darnassus killing her, we saw maybe one Alliance the whole time we were there.
Right.
And it took us about 15 minutes. On the opposite side of the coin, the first time we tried to kill Bronzebeard in Ironforge, I don't think we even made it past the front gates.
Yeah, that was rough.
And we decided that if we were going to do it, we were going to have to approach it with a little more subterfuge, I guess. And we spent a couple of days planning it. And what we eventually came up with was corpse dragging some warlocks into Ironforge at different times of the day, mind you, because we didn't want people to know what we were planning.
Right.
So we had people taking their warlocks in there at different times of the day over the course of like 3 days, corpse dragging them into buildings where they could just log out and stay there. And then, and we planned on the raid and what we were going to do, and decided that if there was no way we were going to get it done unless we had more than one raid there. So we started talking to some of the other guilds, and at the same time trying to keep it extremely quiet. Because, you know, we had on Illidan a community on Illidrama where everybody talked to everybody.
Right, yeah.
And nothing was a secret.
No.
And we had this great plan. We were going to take 3 guilds and 3 totally separate raids, and we were going to summon them in there slowly with the warlocks. And the way we were going to give everybody credit was to have one main raid and then switch people out 5 members at a time to make sure that they got the tap on them.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
But on the opposite side of that coin, we didn't know that was going to work. So we made sure all of us were in the first raid to begin with. So no matter what happened, we would get credit.
Yeah, we're definitely guilty of that, just in case it didn't work.
Yeah, so just in case. But, you know, the raid time starts and people are starting to notice that all of the big raid guilds are online. They're logged in, but they're not in raids. They're just standing around Orgrimmar, which never happens.
Yeah, they're just we're like stand around somewhere, just don't be inconspicuous. Wow, I really
we
can't
have
speak
people.
English.
We're just standing in Orgrimmar buffing, and people are like, "What the hell is going on?" And these warlocks start logging into their alts and resurrecting, and we start summoning people into these buildings. And we're just hoping that nobody's running through Ironforge, hitting tab randomly to target some random raid member and going, "Oh, what's this guy doing here?" And then find, 100 people in a house in Ironforge. And we're summoning, we're getting everybody there slowly. We're telling people not to buff while they're there so the combat logs don't show anything. And we hear somebody on Ventrilo at the time yelling that there's this rogue running around.
Oh my god.
Sapping guards and players in Ironforge, and that he's going to give it away. And everybody's getting pissed off. Who's this rogue? Who the hell would do this? Why would somebody try to sabotage this? And it turns out the rogue is Erat's brother.
Yeah, that was rough. Because we were in the Nook, and I'm like, when we summon you, don't move. Just stand in that corner. You're not in line of sight of people. No one will see you if they're walking by. And they shouldn't really be able to just tab you. And just don't make noise. And then somebody said there's a rogue like wandering around in front of the building, and I'm like, who? What rogue? What the hell? And they're like, oh, it's Zanji, and that's my brother's character. And I'm like, hold on. So I leave. I go to my brother's room and I tell him, you get out of there right now. Do not ruin this. It was terrible. I felt. He's like, I just want to see. I'm like, no, don't ruin this. I'm like, we have 120 people organized, and this is our one shot. Don't screw this up. I mean, I felt bad for like saying that to him, but yeah, I was just like, there was, because at the time I think, what was it? We were using vent still. And
Yeah, we were still using vent, and we didn't have everybody in one ventrilo because everybody
Right.
wouldn't fit on one.
Right.
So we had certain people all in one ventrilo together, while also on their own ventrilos to coordinate with their groups.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember having like 3 vents open, trying to talk to all of the squadrons. Oh my god. And as far as, I mean, you know Illidan, and that many people in that place, I mean, the game was crawling. At one point, I think, what was it? We were around 20%.
Well,
And the
I
game
remember
was basically almost frozen. It was so laggy. Do you
before
remember
even that, I remember being in the building and somebody counting down and saying go, and they had the line mapped out like somebody was pinging along the mini map how we were going to get into the room. And as soon as somebody said go, everybody starts surging up the stairs, and like half of one of the raids went offline.
Wow. That's rough.
But yeah, we're doing this fight, and only hunters can do damage. I don't remember the reason why, but only hunters can do any kind of damage to Bronzebeard.
Right.
And we've only got like 12 hunters across 120 people.
Yeah.
So the tanks are basically just sitting there taunting because the game is frozen pretty much. And whenever Bronzebeard casts Avatar on himself, he one-shots the tank, and the tank and he goes running off, and another tank just has to taunt him and hope that he actually gets threat, while the hunters sit back and just auto-attack. And everybody else is trying to keep the Alliance out of the room, and they're just coming in these huge packs, and the game is crawling. Like I think maybe if I was getting 1 frame per second at that point, I'm being conservative and giving myself a lot of credit.
Right.
It got to the point where we actually had priests stop healing, and we just had them go stand in the hallway and spam Holy Nova, because even though the server was lagged, they were still actually casting it.
Right.
And so every like 3 or 4 minutes, they would see just huge bursts of damage go out in all these death notes.
I remember that. Do you remember whose idea that was?
It had to be Diggs.
Yeah.
And I say that because he kept calling it Holy Nova.
Yeah. It's like, just Holy Nova, guys. It was great. He was just like, he's like, just run up and down the room spamming it. And once he told everyone to do that, within once everything sort of caught up, you just saw explosions.
And you can see in some of the screenshots, you can see Holy Nova's going off in the background.
Yeah.
But then we've got Zonker on Ventrilo also, and he's saying he's trying to coordinate the people switching in groups because he's got a keyword to automatically invite yourself.
Right.
So he's saying like raid 1 group 5 drop group, and then he's saying like raid 2 group 2 drop group and send the keyword. And people are just sending him tells, and as they're getting in, he's waiting for them to be in the raid for a couple seconds, and then he's kicking them out and letting new people come in. And this whole time, we're trying to rotate 120 people through while trying to keep this huge pack of Alliance out, while the server is threatening to just shit all over itself.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty epic.
I think it took all in all about 3 hours, and it was a great time. It was one of the best times I've had raiding.
Yeah,
Like
me
raiding,
too.
just playing in general.
I remember when we all got the achievement, the server crashed almost immediately.
Yeah, when the toast came up, everybody went offline.
There was about like 120 of us horde in there. Then there was the entire Alliance, and then all the guards and you see all the dead bodies in some of these screenshots. As soon as we all got the achievement, we all got the toast. It just went boom. That was it. The server's like, I'm done.
And everybody's yelling on Ventrilo because they think there's a chance it's going to get rolled back and we have to do it all over again.
Yeah, we were worried about that. That was definitely in our minds. So obviously you started with Sunwell, and between BC and Wrath, we participated in that giant raid. You guys can see some of the screenshots I have up there. That was a big epic moment for us. So then coming into Wrath, they reintroduced Naxxramas. Why don't you quickly tell us, because you actually were in one of the original guilds that got to play during level 60 Nax. Just a quick take on what you think about the new Nax and whether you think it's a good or bad thing on that when Wrath came out.
It's really hard to say. It felt like they released it at the right time when they released it at 60.
Right.
But at the same time, they told us that they had never intended to do that and it was going to be used somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it didn't really make sense, where it could be used. Nobody was thinking about Northrend or Naxxramas being there. And even knowing that, seeing it again in Northrend was, I guess, disappointing. Just from the sense that we knew going in, we were already going to know the fights. There wasn't going to be anything different.
Mm-hmm.
We won't really talk about Patchwork and what happened there. But it was just, I guess it was weird to see, because all this time, we're playing the game, we're seeing new content, new bosses, new mechanics, and then suddenly we have a tier 1 raid that's a complete rehash of old content. There's no new lore. I mean, I think the only significant change they even made to the instance was that instead of High Lord Mograine being one of the 4 horsemen, now Baron Rivendare was one of the 4 horsemen, and he's no longer the boss of Stratholme, so it's,
Right. But on the flip side of the first tier of Wrath, obviously the consensus was they sort of fell short on rating tier for the first tier of Wrath, mainly because they redid Nax. Whatever the reasons were, the fact still remained. There were only 2 new bosses, and that was Malygos and Sartharion. Now, one thing I'd love to talk... Now, Sartharion, on the other hand, was different from Nax in the sense that it had difficulty levels. It was the first hard mode that sort of gave birth to the entire hard mode rating of nowadays that sort of segregates the hardcore from just a casual raider. You were actually a part of a lot of the progression on not only the 10-man but 25-man 3 Drake Sartharion. What can you tell us about that, your experiences doing that, and your take on essentially the direction they were going with?
Well, as far as the actual progression, I remember it being literally one of the most stressful periods of my life. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it was actually one of the moments where it was the first time where I really considered quitting because I didn't think the game was a game anymore. Because it got to the point where it was literally logging in and pulling, and in 30, 45 minutes of discussion, analyzing the combat log, talking about what we did wrong and how standing in this particular spot was better on one side versus the other. It was the moment where I had a lot of moments where I wanted to just Alt F4 and not log in again. And it really had nothing to do with who we were playing with or even the content itself. It was just, it was stressful. It was the first taste I really had of, this world-class rating that Blood Legion does now. And, maybe it wasn't quite world-class back then, but to me it was such a huge step from what we had been doing before.
Right.
That it really stressed me out. I didn't like raiding at the time, but at the same time, I stuck with it, and we did a lot of amazing things. Like, there were people saying that 3 Drake 10-man was impossible, and they were saying that even if it was possible, the gear you would need and was almost unobtainable, and that you would need at least 3 healers, and we were doing it with half that gear and 2 healers, which again was probably why it was so damn stressful. But
Right.
But yeah, it was a weird time in the game, like you said, because it was the advent of heroic raiding. It was the first time where they decided they were going to try to appease the entire player base. Because prior to this, you have either you can please the, for lack of a better term, the 1% and create these unforgiving encounters that are just overtuned and almost impossible to complete, or you can appease the the majority of the player base and have content that can be completed with little effort and just a little coordination. And Sartharion is the first time where you get both of those at the same time. You have this encounter that you can just walk right through. And there's really nothing to it. It's just very little coordination. It's not a very tight and rage timer.
Right.
and it's a fun, interesting fight that goes very quickly. Or you can do the complete opposite and turn it into um, this extremely, arguably overtuned fight that doesn't give a huge reward, but still gives a reward that's far and away above what you get normally.
Right.
And then there were also levels in between, which I think, they've obviously strayed from since then. You could make it a little harder or a little harder than that, or the extreme kick your ass mode.
Yeah. Now, this is one thing, the one thing specifically about Sartharian that they sort of, I haven't seen them repeat, is the fact that Wrath is when they introduced 10 and 25 man rating, where you can do 10s and 25. With Sartharian, however, the 25 man version was much easier than the 10 man when it came to 3 Drake Sartharian. I mean, what did you feel about that, where they sort of, the real prestigious kill of that tier was a 10 man, and all the hardcore guilds were 25 man guilds? I mean, how did you feel about that?
I guess to me at the time, it didn't really feel any different. It was just a kind of sign of the times. It was here they're trying to split and say, yeah, you can continue to raid 25 mans, but we're also going to make it easier for the casual groups to raid and make 10 mans. And I think what made the 10 man 3 Drake such a prestigious kill at the time is because it was, again, their first attempt to split the player base. There's easy content, there's medium content, there's hard content. And they have experience tuning 25 mans to this point. They know what they can do and what they can expect, but this is their first time with 10 mans as a serious raiding encounter. Like, we're not talking about Karazhan here. We're talking about actual content that mimics the 25 man content.
Right.
And I think the reason it was harder was just because they didn't know. I guess they didn't know what they were doing. It was an experiment and they had to learn from it. As far as, which one being more prestigious, it felt like it was a jerk back and forth in all of Wrath. In some instances, the 10 man was harder and considered the kill, and in most cases, the 25 man was harder and considered the kill. Like, I know when you guys killed the Lich King on 10 man heroic first in the world, nobody gave a shit. I mean, no offense, but nobody talked about it. And then when the 25 man kill happened, you can't load the forum for 2-3 months without hearing how they did it and what what exploits they may have used. It was just, I don't know. Wrath was a strange, I guess, experimental time for everybody.
Right.
It was college for World of Warcraft.
Yeah, definitely was interesting, and going from, obviously, Wrath went from, enabling hard modes by doing something with the encounter with 3 Drake Sartharian, which sort of led to Ulduar. And after that, they decided they don't want to mess around with in-game stuff and just give you a button that says I want to do hard mode or regular mode. A lot of people love Ulduar, and that was sort of around the time where you were there for, I think, the first little bit, and then that's when you went to China.
I did test roam Ulduar. I was in, when Ulduar was on the test roams, I was in the guild. I was raiding. At the time, my fiance had already moved to China. She had been there for a while, and at the time, I had no intention of going. And it just, over the course of, I think, one weekend, it just turned out that I had an opportunity to go and visit. And I decided that I was going to go for 2 weeks, let everybody know that I was going to be gone for 2 weeks, and within a week of being in China, I had a job and I had signed a contract to stay there for a year. So from China, I was telling everybody, look, I'm not coming back. And, I guess Old War came out, I think, 5 or 6 weeks after I had gone to China.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I was there on the test roam. I did a lot of the test fights, like I tested XT on Heroic and some other things, but I honestly, to this day, have never actually done Old War from start to finish. I've done it in sections, just never from start to finish.
Well, let's touch on that. Obviously, it's a common occurrence where real life circumstances prevent you from playing the game or raiding with people. What was that like for you? Having to. I mean, with obviously there was a lot you had to do with, because again, this isn't like I'm just gonna turn off my PlayStation and go do something else because I don't have time to play right now. You literally committed to a schedule with a group of people that you consider your friends and coworkers, however you want to look at it. And you're in the situation where at the time your girlfriend, now your fiance, was making this life changing decision and moved somewhere, and sort of trying to decide all these things. What was that like for you? Because this is something a lot of people have to face, the reality of reality, getting in the way of, well, maybe not getting in the way, but sort of limiting your time to commit to something like what we're doing here in Blood Legion. Tell us about that.
It's hard. There's really no way around that, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, some people will sit and tell you that the game doesn't mean anything. It's just a game. It's pointless. But the fact of the matter is, when you play, especially in a group like this, you get to know people. They're not just, after a while, they're not just characters anymore. There's actually people behind the monitor. Right. And like in the case of Arat here, like I met Arat through World of Warcraft. The first time I ever talked to him was when he interviewed me to join Blood Legion. And I mean, that's a friendship that I hope is going to last forever. Eric is a great friend. He comes and visits me at my place, and I go out to California and stay at his place, and that's the relationship that we built in the game. I mean, I met my fiance through WoW, and I'm really, some people would laugh at that, and I'm honestly not ashamed of it. I've met great people through Warcraft, and I think that's what makes it hard to walk away from. It's not the game itself. I can turn off the game and be okay. I might miss it for a day or two and decide that I want to play it again, but it's not the game. It's the people that you're playing with, and it's hard to walk away from them. And it's even harder when you realize that the only connection you have to them is this game. Like there's a lot of people that I wish I had kept in touch with that, other than playing the game, I just had no way to stay in touch with them. Because I never considered myself not playing. So I never reached out to them as, hey, what's your phone number? Or can I get an email address? Or let's talk on Instant Messenger sometime, because we were always logged in, we're always talking, we're always having fun. And then suddenly that's gone. And it was really hard to walk away from. The time that I spent in China was great, and I met some great people and good friends there, but I missed a lot of what was happening here. I didn't get to talk to people like Zonker or Taft anymore. I never got to say goodbye to Z Extreme, for as sappy as that might sound. When I left, he was still there, and when I came back, he was gone. And things like that just, I don't know, it makes it hard to turn away from. I would never laugh at anybody or say anything about them when they say, it's hard to walk away from the game, because I understand. And it's something that I've tried to teach people that I've played with who looked at it differently, is that it's not just the game. I mean, it is just the game, but the people you're playing with are real people. And they come to depend on you the way you come to depend on them. And when you're not there, it makes a difference. It makes a mark in their lives. Whether or not it should is a completely different story. But it does. And when you take that into consideration, when you really think about it, it makes it hard to walk away from. Like I said, I don't play with you guys anymore, and I miss it a lot. I miss a lot of the people. And I mean, I'll find any excuse to play anything with you,
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, guys. I mean, like Voss is saying, it's not just, it's a lot of, you make a lot of friends. You're used to speaking with people on a daily basis, doing things with them, and until it's sort of taken away from you, it's a lot of people take it for granted, and obviously Voss didn't. I mean, he appreciated it, and he still appreciates it, the time then, and if there's an opportunity to sort of, where we can do something together, whether it's this or me being terrible at League or whatever,
Or Street Fighter. Who said that?
Oh, I think you're talking about you being bad at Street Fighter. No big deal. But anyway, uh, but yeah, so obviously you're still involved with the game with your website. Why don't you tell us a little about that sort of how that's going? Up here, I can show you guys one of the comics. Actually, this is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one of your most famous comics. This specific one because you guys won the Warcraft comic contest with this one.
The comic itself started as just a way for my fiance and I to just have something to do together. We were playing the game, but at the same time, it was just something we could work on together and say that it was ours. And it was just kind of something that we talked about here and there and never really considered doing. And then one day it was just kind of, okay, let's do it. And then, a couple days later, we have a webcomic. I mean, it really is that easy to start. And I fancy myself the writer, but honestly, a lot of the work most of the work is hers. The artwork, the scripts, the titles. And this one in particular did win Comic of the Month, which we never got our prize for, if anybody is listening. But
I'm sure Blizzard's listening to my stream.
Yeah, I bet they are. Chris Metzen's logged in right now.
Hey, you guys.
But it actually came as a joke that somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody had said it to us while we were raiding with the group that I started playing with afterward, just kind of casually. And it was at the time they announced the new race and class combinations, and Tauren Paladins were one of them. And it's just kind of one of those inevitable jokes. It was just kind of based on Red Bull, and Red Bull gives you wings, and
right.
You change a letter, and now you've got Red Bull gives you wings, and then you have a spell for Paladins that actually gives you wings. And it was just kind of one of those things that fit together too perfectly that I think we were even surprised nobody had done before us.
Right.
And so she puts this together. It's hilarious. I mean, it's on the website if you want to get a closer look at it. And it's just funny. I mean, even when I look at it now, it's just funny. And after this came out, she and I were at a comic expo together, promoting the comic, and somebody actually brought a can of Red Bull and asked her to autograph it because he had seen the comic and he thought it was funny enough for that.
That's awesome. And I think you had mentioned before that I made an appearance in one of your comics. I think I have it here. Why don't you tell us a little about the inspiration for this one?
This comic came after I actually saw Erat wearing a dress in real life. No.
Oh yes, I love wearing dresses, guys.
So we had gone to BlizzCon, and I forget what year it was, but I remember the entire expansion. Erat is complaining that everybody tanks better than Protection Warriors, and he's getting more and more upset about it as the expansion goes on. And I mean, when I say upset, I mean he's bitching to me that Warriors can't tank well, knowing that I don't give a damn. So that's how I know that it's important to him. So he's talking about this all the time, and we go to BlizzCon, and it's still like this, and I forget the exact circumstances, but he had an opportunity to walk up to Greg Street, Ghostcrawler, and ask him about the state of Protection Warriors and tanking. And he airs his grievances in bullet format, like he's been practicing this in front of the mirror every day. Like, if I ever meet Ghostcrawler, this is what's going to happen. And he goes down these points, and at the end of it, you couldn't script this if you were writing a movie. Ghostcrawler just looks at him and says, "I think Warriors are fine," and that's the end of the conversation. Like, he didn't counternote any of the points. He just looks him right in the eye, says Warriors are fine, and just the only way it could have been better is if he had just followed it up with "learn to play."
You might as well have said that.
And when we got home, it was almost, BlizzCon happened in October. When we got home, it was almost Halloween, and we're talking about a Halloween comic. And it just it kind of struck me. I was like, let's have an orc warrior in the comic, and his Halloween costume is a dress. And whenever somebody asks him what they are is for Halloween, he's going to say protection warrior, because that's how Ararat feels protection warriors are.
Yeah.
And that's just, it kind of evolved into that. We used the model viewer to put Ararat's character together, and put him in a pink dress holding a shield made out of flowers, and said that he's a protection warrior, because again, that's how Ararat felt about the state of protection warriors at the time.
Yeah, I remember that time. It was basically, it was around the time where Uldor had finished, and the warriors were sort of the worst tanks. I mean, you had Death Knights were up there with their crazy cooldowns, and then Prop Paladin were really good, and everybody had a feral. And after speaking with Ghostcrawler, I basically made the decision to just go to DPS, because there was me tanking wasn't doing anybody any good, and it was definitely put a smile on my face seeing this. It's actually even better now. I mean, you could see the little details. You got little butterflies around my sword and everything. I mean,
It's enchanted with butterflies and everything.
Right?
It's
It's really well done. I love it.
There's actually one of the comments. I don't remember which one it is, but he gives names to the enchants for the sword and the name of the shield and everything.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, we went through a lot here. Talked about, when Voss joined, some of the highlights that we went through his a little over a year of full-time raiding with us. Sort of what he's doing now with his Daily Quest comic, and his reign as lore master. If you guys have any questions for Voss, please let me know. Can you actually see the chat? Because I've been having some problems with it.
The last thing I saw is something about hunters doing damage, which has to go back to the Ironforge raid, so that's the most I can see.
Okay. Can anybody see the chat? If you can, please write something. I want to make sure this is working. Do you actually plan on playing Mists of Pandaria?
I've been playing the beta a little bit. I'm kind of liking what I see. There's some really cool lore right off in the starting zone for the Pandaren that kind of ties the expansion to Cataclysm. And things like that really make me appreciate the game. As far as whether or not I'll play Pandaria, it's, I guess, ask me when it launches. That's a long way off, and it's hard to say. Diablo 3 is the next thing on my plate, and I'm looking forward to that just as much as anybody else is.
Are you looking forward to that? Are you also into Diablo lore, or is it just you just love Blizzard games? You gotta play them games.
A little of both, I guess. Anytime I get into a game, I appreciate good stories. As a writer and just as a video game fan, I like there to be substance to the games that I play. Immersion is important to me, right. And having a good story is a key part to that. And Blizzard's made a fortune off of their storytelling. You can call them what they are, but games are in this day and age equivalent to books and movies. It's entertainment. It's just entertainment that you happen to control. But there's still a story there. There's things going on that people have invested a lot of time, energy, and creativity into that most people just skip over or gloss over and don't really think about. I know some of my friends played Diablo 2 and they didn't care what was happening. And at the time, I guess in high school I didn't either. It was just a fun game. We can play this with my friends and we can reset and do it over again and compete for good gear and stuff. But it's, when I go back and play them again, I kind of appreciate the nuances that go into them and the storytelling. And so Diablo 3 is not any different. I appreciate the story for what it is. I don't get into it quite as much as I get into to Warcraft and Warhammer and some other things, but it's definitely interesting to me. I like to follow it and I like to know what's going on. And I've made some guesses myself as to what's going on in the story and where it's going to take us, and looking forward to seeing how it actually pans out.
Nice. Are you looking forward to hopefully hearing more Chris Metzen doing all the voices and characters? Is that
It to this day drives me up the damn wall.
yeah.
Every character in the game, all I hear is Chris Metzen, and it drives me nuts. I love Chris Metzen. He is a huge inspiration, a great storyteller, and I would kill just to have a conversation with him. But damn it, hire some voice actors. I mean, let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I want to thank you for doing this interview with me, Ross. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Learning more about you, learning more about some of the things that happened in the guild back then, and learning about what you're up to now. If you guys could thank Voss for showing up, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is again first interview I've done. Hopefully it went relatively smooth. Maybe give me some feedback on what you guys think, and hopefully we can have Voss on here again another time. Maybe we can. One idea Voss actually had was maybe we can do some 5-man dungeons, and he could sort of explain what's happening there. Again, he is the lore master. He knows all that stuff, and I personally go to him anytime I have a question about that. Is there anything you want to say, Voss, to everybody, or any closing notes that's on your mind you want to get out there?
No, I mean, honestly, this was a lot of fun. The only thing, I've ever really asked of anybody playing games online is to remember that the people you're playing with are people. They're not just characters. They're not just text on the screen. There's people there that have lives just like you do. And the things that you say and do mean something to them, good or bad, even the little things. So just try to keep that in mind whenever you play. And, keep playing games. It's great for all of us.
Very nice. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and thank you, Voss, for joining. And
Sure thing.
We're I guess getting ready for a raid here in a bit. Find out if I'm doing that or not. Thanks again, Voss, and we will talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
Take care. All right, guys. So that was Voss, Supervas. He is super.